You've probably told yourself this at least once. I'm just not talented enough. It feels honest. It feels realistic. It feels mature. And it quietly lets you off the hook. Because if the problem is talent, there's nothing you can do. Talent is something you're born with, right? That belief has ruined more futures than laziness ever could. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't lack talent. You lack friction tolerance, the ability to stay engaged when things stop rewarding you, when progress is slow, when feedback disappears, when effort feels invisible. Talent gets you started. Friction decides who continues, and continuation is where outcomes are created. But nobody teaches you how to tolerate friction. They teach you to chase excitement, praise, validation. So when those disappear, you assume you've hit your limit. You haven't. You've hit the part where talent is irrelevant. This is where most people quit. And then they call it a lack of talent to protect their identity. Because saying I wasn't built for this hurts less than saying I didn't stay long enough. Here's the first illusion you've been living under. You think talented people enjoy the process more than you. They don't. They just tolerate boredom better. They tolerate repetition better. They tolerate being bad at something longer. That's it. Talent doesn't make effort painless. It makes early progress slightly faster. But after that, everyone hits the same wall. The wall where effort stops being fun. The wall where improvement slows. The wall where nobody notices. You hit that wall and assume it means something about you. It doesn't. It means you arrived where most people turn back. Here's the second illusion. You believe confidence is a prerequisite, that talented people feel capable before they act. They don't. They act while unsure. Confidence comes after proof. Proof comes after repetition. Repetition comes after discomfort. You're waiting for confidence. They're collecting evidence. That difference compounds fast. Now let's talk about how this belief gets installed. From a young age, you're praised for being good, not for being persistent. You're rewarded when things come easily. So you associate success with ease. Then one day, things stop being easy. And instead of thinking, this is normal, you think, this must not be for me. That's conditioning, not truth. School, work, and social media all reinforce this lie. They show finished products, highlight reels. They hide the grind. So you compare your messy middle to someone else's polished outcome and conclude you're missing something. You're not. You're just early. Now here's the part that hurts. Calling it a lack of talent protects you from responsibility. If it's talent, you can stop trying without shame. If it's effort, tolerance, and consistency, you're accountable. That accountability is uncomfortable. So the mind chooses the more comforting story. I just don't have it. That sentence is emotional anesthesia. It numbs regret now, but it guarantees regret later. Here's another hard truth. Most people never reach the limits of their ability. They reach the limits of their patience. They quit during the phase where returns are low and effort is high. That phase exists in every skill, every career, every transformation. There is no path that avoids it. But talent myths convince you that paths should feel aligned all the time. They shouldn't. Alignment is something you feel after commitment, not before. Now, let's talk about how talent myths distort your self-image. You label yourself early. I'm not creative. I'm not technical. I'm not disciplined. Those labels aren't diagnoses. They're decisions. Decisions to stop exposing yourself to discomfort in that area. Because once you label yourself, you protect the label. You avoid situations that might challenge it. So the label becomes true, not because it was accurate, because you stop testing it. High performers do the opposite. They assume they're unqualified, and then they train. They don't ask, am I talented? They ask, am I improving? That question keeps them moving. Now let's talk about repetition. This is where most people confuse talent with progress. Repetition is boring, unsexy, invisible. So when progress slows, you assume you've plateaued. You haven't. You've entered the compounding zone, the part where gains are small but cumulative. This is where talent myths kill momentum. You think, if I were talented, this would be faster. No, if you were patient, this would be inevitable. Here's another truth nobody wants to hear. Talent is overrated in environments with long timelines. It matters early, then it fades. Consistency dominates. That's why people with less talent often outperform gifted ones. They stay. They don't romanticize their ability. They just show up. Talent without friction tolerance is wasted potential. Now let's talk about emotional regulation, because this is what you actually lack, not intelligence, not ability. The ability to function when motivation drops, when doubt appears, when excitement dies. You rely on emotional fuel. When it runs out, you stop. High performers rely on structure, rules, standards. They don't ask how they feel. They execute the plan. That's not willpower. That's design. You think they're special. They're not. They just removed emotion from decision-making. Now here's the cycle you're stuck in. You start something. You feel motivated. You see early progress. Then resistance appears. Boredom, self-doubt, slower growth. You interpret resistance as a signal to stop. So you stop. Then you tell yourself you lacked talent. Then you start something new. Repeat. This cycle never ends until you change the interpretation. Resistance is not a warning. It's a checkpoint. A checkpoint that says, from here on, only consistency works. Most people turn around there. A few stay. Those few look talented later. They weren't born that way. They endured longer. Now let's talk about fear. Fear of wasting time. Fear of choosing wrong. Fear of investing effort that doesn't pay off. So you hedge. You half commit. You keep exits open. That feels smart. It's not. Half commitment produces half feedback, which makes it impossible to know if something works. So you quit due to lack of results, but you never gave the process a fair trial. This is why talented people often underperform. They expect returns without full exposure. They never build momentum. Now here's the part nobody admits. You secretly believe that if something is right for you, it will feel good most of the time. That belief is poison. Anything meaningful feels bad often, confusing, lonely, repetitive. If you require enjoyment to continue, you'll quit everything that matters. High performers don't require enjoyment. They require alignment with a long-term identity. This is who I'm becoming. That identity carries them when emotion fails. Now, let's talk about evidence. You don't trust yourself because you don't have proof, and you don't have proof because you don't stay long enough to generate it. So you doubt. And doubt feels like truth. It's not. It's absence of data. Talent myths convince you that doubt means inability. It doesn't. It means you're early. Now let's talk about the cost. Every time you quit and blame talent, you train helplessness. You teach yourself that effort doesn't matter. That belief spreads. Soon you hesitate everywhere. You stop pushing. You stop testing. You stop believing growth is possible. Not because it isn't, because you trained yourself to stop early. This is why some people feel stuck for decades. Not because they lacked ability, because they never built follow-through. Follow-through is the real skill, and it's trainable, but only if you stop hiding behind talent myths. Here's the brutal truth. If talent were the problem, effort wouldn't scare you. You'd try harder to find out. But effort scares you because it threatens your self-image. If you try fully and still struggle, you'll have to update how you see yourself. That's uncomfortable, so you avoid full effort. And then you call it lack of talent. That's self-protection, not honesty. Now here's the real question you've been avoiding. Not, am I talented, but can I stay consistent when the reward disappears? That question determines everything. Careers, skills, confidence, futures. Most people never train that ability, so they quit early, and then they explain it with talent. Because once you see that talent isn't the missing piece, you need to build the thing that actually replaces it, the thing that makes talent irrelevant. And that thing is what actually creates success. If talent isn't the problem, then something else has been quietly deciding your outcomes. That thing is follow-through, not motivation, not confidence, not intelligence. Follow-through is the ability to keep showing up after the reward disappears. That's the real separator. Most people never build it. Not because they can't, because they misunderstand what it costs. Follow-through costs ego. It costs comfort. It costs the fantasy that you're naturally gifted, and that's why people avoid it. They'd rather believe they lack talent than prove they lack consistency. Now here's the shift that changes everything. You stop asking, "Am I good at this?" and start asking, "Am I still here?" That question removes judgment. It replaces evaluation with endurance, and endurance beats talent over any long timeline. Now let's talk about what actually replaces talent in the real world. It's not hustle. It's not grit. It's boring reliability. The ability to do the same thing when it no longer excites you. When nobody is watching, when progress feels flat. High performers don't rely on emotional fuel. They rely on identity rules. Rules like, this is what I do. I don't stop when it gets dull. I don't negotiate with resistance. Those rules remove choice. Choice is where most people fail. Every day they ask, do I feel like it? Is this worth it? Should I keep going? Those questions drain energy. High performers decided long ago. So, when the day comes, they just execute. Now let's talk about how you actually build follow-through. Not conceptually, practically. You don't start by going harder. You start by lowering the requirement to continue. Most people quit because their standard is too high. They think showing up only counts if it's intense, perfect, impressive. So on bad days, they skip entirely. High performers define a minimum, a floor, a version of the task so small it's impossible to justify skipping. Not because it's optimal, because it preserves continuity. And continuity is everything. Momentum doesn't come from intensity. It comes from not stopping. Now, let's talk about emotional resistance. This is where talent myths collapse. You feel resistance and assume it means something. It shouldn't feel this hard. If I were talented, this would be easier. No. Resistance means repetition has begun. And repetition is where progress hides. High performers don't interpret resistance. They expect it. They plan for it. They don't ask why it's there. They work through it. That's follow-through in action. Now here's a hard truth. You don't quit because the work is hard. You quit because you didn't decide in advance what happens when it gets hard. So emotion decides for you. High performers never let emotion make exit decisions. They decide exit conditions before they start. Time-based, effort-based, objective, not mood-based. This removes quitting as a reflex. Now let's talk about confidence again, because this is where people stay confused. Confidence is not built by success. It's built by keeping promises to yourself. Every time you show up when you said you would, confidence increases. Every time you don't, it decreases. Talent doesn't matter here. Follow-through does. That's why some people with average ability seem unstoppable. They trust themselves. And self-trust is leverage. Now, let's talk about boredom. Boredom is the final gatekeeper. Talent gets you to boredom quickly. Follow-through decides what happens next. Most people see boredom and think, this isn't working. High performers think, this is stabilizing. Boredom means the nervous system is no longer overstimulated. That's when consistency becomes possible. That's when compounding begins. So they stay. And staying changes outcomes. Now let's talk about identity. You stop seeing yourself as talented or not. You become someone who finishes. That identity is rare, and it's powerful. Finishers don't need to be the best. They just need to last. And lasting beats brilliance that burns out. Every time. Now here's the part that will sting. You were never blocked by lack of talent. You were blocked by protecting your self-image. Talent myths allowed you to quit without confronting a harder truth. That growth requires staying longer than your ego wants. Once you accept that, everything shifts. You stop looking for signs you're gifted. You start looking for proof you're consistent. That proof compounds fast. Now, let's make this concrete. Here's the anti-talent framework. Pick one thing you've labeled yourself as not talented at. 1, not 10. Then make a simple rule. I will do this at a low level, consistently, for 90 days, no evaluation, no judging progress, no comparing, no quitting. Just showing up. Minimum effort counts. At the end of 90 days, reassess. Not emotionally, objectively. Most people never do this once in their life. Those who do are shocked by the result. Not because they became amazing, because they realized how much progress consistency creates. Now let's talk about fear one last time. Fear tells you, what if I try and still fail? But the real danger is this. What if you never find out? What if you spend your life believing you weren't built for more, when the truth was you just never stayed long enough? That regret is heavier than failure. High performers are not fearless. They're unwilling to live with that question unanswered. So they commit. They stay. They find out. Now, the final challenge. This is not motivational. It's structural. Today, choose one thing you've quit before and blamed on lack of talent. Restart it. Not with intensity, with a rule, a small, repeatable action you can do even on bad days. Then make one promise. I don't evaluate this until I've stayed longer than last time. That's it. No hype, no pressure, just continuity. Because once you outlast your old quitting point, something happens. Your self-image updates. And when self-image changes, behavior follows automatically. If this exposed a lie you've been telling yourself for years, leave a comment with one word, stayed. And subscribe if you want more of this. Not confidence talk, not talent myths, but the mental rules that make progress inevitable. Because you never lacked talent. You lacked the one thing that turns ability into results. And now you know what it is.